What's going on, guys? Welcome to the very first Minimalist Musician live stream. Hoping to do lots more of these in the future, and I'm super pumped. I've got a really awesome guest here with me today, Nathan Whitney, who is a Canadian musician based down in Toronto. He's working with Thomas Rhett right now, who's based out of Nashville and has played all kinds of cool gigs. He's just recently released a cool ebook called Honesty in Practice. It's a whole bunch of different practice exercises with all sorts of different techniques that he's put together over the last couple of years. I'm super pumped to have him on here to chat about that today. We're going to talk about what he likes to do in practice, how he keeps his guitar playing fresh. Because even when it's your job and you're doing it full time, sometimes things can get stale. It happens for everybody. So let's bring him in and we'll get right to it. Hey man, what's going on?
Hey Eric, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for hanging out, dude.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'm super happy. I think you've got lots of valuable information for people out there. You're a man that likes to practice.
I do. It's a bit of I think maybe I'm a little bit of anxiety driven and maybe a little neurotic. So if I don't have my guitar in my hands a little bit each day, I kind of go a little cuckoo. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are that way.
Yeah.
Has practice, like in this sense, like where you're actually working on exercises for specific techniques as opposed to just like working through songs, has that been something you've always incorporated and enjoyed incorporating into your regular guitar playing?
Oh, I would 100%.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I am probably I'm gonna, here's some honesty in practice. Honesty.
Yes.
I don't think I ever really learned a song on guitar, like a full song start to finish, until I was in college for music.
Yeah.
Because when I grew up, I was listening to like the Steve Vais, I was listening to the John Petrucci's, I was listening to Joe Satriani's, and I'm like, I just want to learn how to play sweep arpeggios. I just want to learn how to shred. And it wasn't about playing a song. It wasn't about I think it was until college when I finally learned how to play Satch Boogie. And I learned it from beginning to end. I'm like, oh, all these things that I've been working on in high school and stuff, finally there's a musical application. Nice. I'm definitely a little, is it left or right brain? Whichever side is a little more analytical and mathematical based. So I
think it's right.
Right.
Yeah. I might be wrong.
Maybe a right brain person.
Because I'm the other brain.
Okay. Yeah. See, I love spreadsheets. That's,
yes.
That's me. So
that's awesome. Man.
That's where, I totally practice exercises. I would go. Now, I shouldn't say I didn't learn songs. When I was in high school, I had a great teacher named Larry Chown out of he lived just east of Oshawa, Ontario. Okay. And we worked through the Berkeley Modern Method for Guitar books.
Is that the black one with the green?
Well, yeah. There's three of them. It's black is the volume 1, black with green lettering, and the yellow is volume 2, and then orange is volume 3. And so they have like full length etudes in those books. Yep. And I would learn those, but I would never sit down and like learn a Judas Priest song. I would never I would suffer what we all do as guitar players. We learn the riff of the song, the hook or the
intro solo.
Yeah, and wouldn't get any farther than that. Yeah. So, I love practicing exercises. My wife hates, my wife hated the way I used to, 'cause I would play the same 6-note pattern for hours straight. Yeah. And now it's just like, it's like white noise. It's not even there, it's like just in the background sort of thing. So I love practicing exercises, and I actually should get better at learning to play full songs outside of work songs,
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it's funny, and that's the opposite of my experience, although I did do the same thing when I was in elementary school and even in through high school. I remember my dad making the comment, like, are you ever going to play the full thing? Like, 70 half songs or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. You go to a party and they're like, hey, play a song. You're like, I can play a pentatonic scale, really.
That's right. The end of Stairway to Heaven. Yeah. The Iron Man intro. Whatever those were. Exactly. That's super, super cool. And I think that I'm curious to see what other people have to say about this, because for me, I have a really hard time sitting down and actually getting into a practice routine unless I actually have musical commitments. And I think you and I are both lucky enough that music is our job, so we have to do those things. Otherwise, the other side of it is we don't get paid, or we get fired, or
Yeah.
or whatever. We don't pay our mortgage or
Yeah.
rent. And for other people out there that don't have that fire, I don't know. Do you have any tips for how to create and establish some sort of a practice routine that's enjoyable? Are there some things that you found that you really like to do?
I think that's exactly what you said. It has to be enjoyable. You have to find the thing that you enjoy practicing and are passionate about, whether it's like the dog's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
um yeah, like that's totally it. Like I practice those 6-note repeating Paul Gilbert licks because I love doing that. It's
Yep.
fun for me. It's cool
Yep.
seeing the progress. It's like for other people, their thing might be video games. They like and advancing in levels in a video game, like
Yep.
that's you have to have, that's their hobby and that's what their passion. They get better at it because they're having fun with it. So you got to
Yep.
find things that are fun. And if fun is learning how to shred like Paul Gilbert, that's one thing. If it's learning how to write a song like your favorite songwriter, I was going to say Bob Dylan, but I don't really know anything about Bob Dylan's songwriting.
Yeah.
But like, it's like Ryan Tedder or whoever. If you want it, whatever aspect that drew you to guitar and to music, that's what you should focus on. Like, there's only one of you, so be the best you and do whatever you want to do. There's already other people that do the other stuff, so just be you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great advice. It definitely has to be fun. So you mentioned that you even still don't always necessarily learn full songs except for your work. So you're playing with Thomas Rhett right now, who's a big American act.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about that? I'd love to hear about how you got the gig, a little bit about it. Because I remember the first time I remember seeing you, we were on a bill together once, as far as I can remember, like 2015. I remember the first time noticing you play, and it might have been with Kira Isabella.
Right, probably.
It was somewhere outside of Ottawa, and then 2015. And when did you get the Thomas Rhett gig?
2017.
Yeah, so it went from that to this full on, like, it's your only musical commitment now, other than these things that you're doing education wise and maybe some session work.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
For sure. Well, at the end of the day, it was all about relationships.
Yep.
There's the greatest thing about this is that I'm the luckiest guitar player in Nashville that doesn't even live in Nashville. Like
awesome.
I've got a great gig. I love the band. I love TR. I love the entire crew. And I don't say that like I love them. Like, no, these are really genuinely some of my best friends, and they're great people to work with. Nice. And even if we weren't on this gig together, we'd all be hanging out. So that's
awesome.
Like, it's really cool. But I got the gig because I actually I knew one guy specifically, Chris, the drummer. He is actually Canadian as well. And we went to elementary school together.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So we sort of knew each other in elementary school. And then we went to different high schools and we reconnected at college. We both went to Humber College in Toronto here. I did the full 3 years. Chris did 1 year, and then he actually moved down to Nashville to finish out his schooling down there. So he moved down there in early 2000s, and we just kept in touch and we were friends. Nice. And over the next 15 years, I would go down and hang out and visit him in Nashville. And nice. I've actually went to probably 3 or 4 Thomas Rhett rehearsals before I was ever even in band, just as a friend going to hang out, and we go and do that. So when they needed a guitar player, they had their current guitar player had some things that prevented him. They were sort of sudden that prevented him from getting on the road. So 9 days before the tour, I got a phone call, and they had gone through a list of all these Nashville guys that either couldn't do it or had previous commitments or all that sort of stuff. And my friend Chris threw my name in the hat because they'd actually seen me play on a couple festivals. When I was playing for Kira, we were on the same stage as Thomas back in, I think it was 2015 or 2016. Okay. So they'd seen me play. They knew I could do that sort of thing. So my friend Chris threw my name in the hat, and the musical director said, well, let's give it a shot.
Nice.
So they gave me a call, and luckily I had my work visa for the States, which is huge. If I didn't have that, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could probably be slugging it at some bar right now.
That's right.
Like, oh man, which wedding are you playing tomorrow? How many students did you teach today? Sort of thing,
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing. So they gave me a call, and I was on a plane 8 hours later, flying down to Nashville, and playing with the band 12 hours later, and yeah, 9 days after that, we started TR's first headlining tour, and been going ever since.
That's wild. So okay, so you get the call and it happens so quickly.
Yeah.
So at that point, how many tunes would that have been? Was that like a 90-minute headlining kind of set? Was that?
I think it was 75 to 90 was, I think, the contract, what
Yep.
they, you have to do to
Yep.
complete that. But it was 18 tunes. I remember that.
Okay.
It was 18 tunes. And okay, I said I didn't learn tunes,
Yep.
but I didn't learn tunes, but I chart tunes.
Yes.
And I use it as like for ear training. I learned about the Nashville number system. I don't know
Yep.
if anybody watching this knows about it, but instead of writing like 4 in the key of C, instead of writing C and then F and then G, you would write 1, 4, and 5.
Yep.
And so that's the way I write out all my charts. And so for ear training, and just to sort of, I was always interested in country, and I love the genre, and I was always hoping I would get a chance to have a gig like this. So I would chart all the number ones that came on the radio.
Cool.
And because this is going to sound crazy, I kind of like, it's not going to sound crazy. I really believe in the power of positive thinking, and I believe in putting things out into the universe in
Yeah.
a positive way, and somehow they come back. And I said to myself for 2 years, I want to be Thomas Rhett's guitar player. I don't know how this is going to happen,
Yep.
but so I actually got the call, and I walked over to my shelf and pulled out my binder full of all of TR's albums, charted out, ready to go. So I didn't have all the specific parts or anything like that, but I had the song forms and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I could start rehearsing right away.
Yeah, and that's enough for those who don't know about the Nashville number system. There, actually, I made a video on it a couple weeks ago because I was at a studio
great.
session where I was the only one in the room who spoke numbers. And
Right.
there's like, especially as a guitar player, you got capos on guitars and bass players playing open, acoustic guitar players playing open. It's so valuable. So you could walk into that gig and really all you have to do with your charts then is just learn the lines you need to play.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, you understand where all the numbers are in each key, and you can, both by ear and by looking at your chart you've made for reference, like, you could probably pull that gig off.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's the national number system is like, it's so essential, because even like I just got back from Nashville. We just finished rehearsals, and we had a whole new record to learn. So I charted the entire record in Nashville numbers, and we show up on into rehearsal, and we get a note like 5 minutes before rehearsal started that this is in C, but we're actually going to do it in B. Now,
Totally.
if I had written a chart out with like C, F, G, trying to sight transpose that would have been impossible.
Yeah.
Just because like just going from C to B, F to E, G to F sharp, that's crazy. But using numbers just made it so much easier. I was like, okay, well, I'll just look at my chart and follow along,
Perfect. Done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so powerful. That's super awesome. So, and you would have been as far as charting goes, and like, prior to the Thomas Rhett gig, were you doing a whole bunch of different gigs?
I was
the same thing the rest of us do.
Yeah, man. And what I'm sure I will do again someday.
How many bands do you play with? You're like, I don't know, 15, 20,
Yeah.
whatever. Whoever calls me.
What day of the week is it? Yeah. I was playing, let's see. I sort of like, I went and worked on cruise ships for 7 years.
Oh, cool.
In mid 2000s. So
Yeah.
I was away for a long time, and that was a really good learning experience in and of itself. And then when I got back to Toronto, that's the thing, like just being in the scene, being connected, being established. It took me 3 or 4 years before I started getting consistent calls for work that people knew I was around and stuff.
Yeah.
But once that started happening, I was consistently playing in probably 2 or 3 different wedding bands. I had sort of like a residency with a hard rock band at a club downtown Toronto, and I was also running my own like corporate cover band, country band sort of thing.
Cool.
So I was doing that, and then on top of that, I was also playing for Kira Isabella,
Yeah.
and Autumn Hill.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anybody else. There's just a bunch of people. Leah Daniels is another
Yeah.
person who was I was working for a lot
Nice.
back then. So yeah, at any one time, I'd say between 2014 and 2017, I was probably working with 7 or 8 different bands or groups at any one time.
Yeah, and it's wild too. Like, how do you feel? Okay, so now you're doing the one gig.
Yeah.
How has that impacted your practice? Because with the Thomas Rhett gig, how much changes from day to day, or from show to show, or from?
For us, once we really dial things in, because
Yep.
honestly, at the end of the day, it's such a huge production.
Right.
there can't be a whole, there can be some like improvisation in regards to what we play a little bit, and there can also be improvisation in like what happens during the show. But for the most part, it has to be kind of locked in because we're dealing with moving parts of the stage. So like things are all going by time code. So you have to make sure you're in the right spot so that the lift raises you at the right spot, or that you don't get, pyro blown in your face, or that the video content that they spent thousands of dollars creating is in sync with what you're doing. You don't want it to look stupid or anything like that, right? So we're pretty dialed in by the end of rehearsals. Now, like I would say for the most part, like we go back, we have sound check every day on the road. So we're always, and our band leader always we tape every show. We get a board tape of every show into a Dropbox every night.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome.
The band leader goes and listens to that, and he highly encourages us to listen to it as well, though. We're not the band leader, so we'll let him do it. Unless there's something major that's going on,
Sure.
We'll go back and review that, and then we'll have sound check, and we'll touch on spots that weren't as smooth the night before, or things like that. So that's always a consideration, and we're always touching on gear and tone and trying to improve things as the tour goes on. So but then when it comes to my own practice time, that's it really, on the road, there's definitely, you can get road chops, you can get gig chops.
Absolutely.
Where it's like I can play like after the 4 weeks of rehearsal we just had, and we've probably got a couple one-offs coming up, and the tour doesn't start till June, but I would say by the end of June, like the show will be under my fingers. I will be completely comfortable. I won't be thinking about it anymore. I'll just be performing. So that's when that sort of practice ends, and then my personal practice time starts to ramp up back again. And that's where it's like, I could be anything from learning, like transcribing pedal steel solos or licks or whatever, to working on the Paul Gilbert or Yngwie stuff. I've been really redoing my picking technique the last few years. You've probably heard of Cracking the Code and Troy Grady.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what Troy's done about like deconstructing the way our picking mechanism and our wrist and everything, and how that all works. And it's changed how I play for sure, but it's been a huge learning process, because for 20 years I was playing guitar one way, and then for the last 3 years I've been turning things, and muscles are doing things they haven't been doing for 20 years. So that's been a huge part of my practice time, is working on that sort of stuff.
I think it's so cool to hear a guy like you, who's doing it at the level you are, talk about something like that, where a lot of people would never think to A, change their pick technique, B, change their pick. Little things like that can have like the craziest impact. I went through something similar. I got super into acoustic guitar, so when COVID hit, gigs kind of dried up, and I decided, I'll do a little more recording at home, and like went really deep with the acoustic thing, and watching lots of bluegrass guys play. And for me, I've always been one to like anchor my hand on the guitar constantly, like unless I'm strumming big chords, like no matter what I'm doing, I've got an anchor here. And I started watching these guys, guitar players and mandolin players, with a floating hand. And like they're playing so accurately, and it took me like weeks of like trying to play the same lick over and over to like even get close to accurate with it.
It's
those kinds of things.
Those small motions are so like critical to speed and accuracy, like just being aware of them. And like that's where like I still take lessons. Like that's the thing. Like I haven't taken one in the last couple of months. But you get to a certain level where you don't need to take them every week or every other week.
Of course.
Once a month, you take them, and when you have a specific thing to work on. And I don't know if you've ever seen Billy Campbell on Instagram.
No.
He plays for the band Low Cash right now.
Okay.
He is a shred machine, and he's my shred mentor, my sensei. And
that's awesome. Nice.
I just I really look up to Billy, and he's a perfect example of someone who practices. Like when he's not on the road, he's got a family, and so he's taking care of his kids. And like when his kids go down for a nap, he's in the garage practicing. And when his kids go down at the end of the day, he's in the garage practicing. And that's why he's so good, because he probably puts in between 2 and 5 hours a day still on the instrument. And I'm like, well, I practiced an hour and a half today. I feel pretty good about that. But that's also why I'm like Billy Campbell, That's why I can't shred like that quite yet. So
it's so cool. It never ends, right? I think that's I remember at a point looking at guitar players who are way up here and going like, okay, one day I'll get there and I'll be there, it'll be done. And the older you get, the deeper you get into it, the more you realize like there's so much you can never learn. And I think as soon as you wrap your head around that in a positive way,
Mhm.
and you go like, it's not like, oh man, I'll never get here. It's like I can literally learn. I can go this way. I can go this way. I can go this way. I can literally learn any of this stuff until the day that my fingers or brain don't work anymore.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm sure you've experienced that sort of thing. The way I've always sort of explained it to people is like when I was younger, it was like I had a painter's, is it the palette with all the different colors, and I was just mushing them all together, and it was just looking like a blob.
Yep.
And as I started to pull colors off the palette, as I started to say, you know what, I'm never going to be a jazz guitar player. I love and I still practice jazz a little bit in certain aspects, but I'm never going to be a jazz. As soon as I put that away, that allowed me to focus more on the things that I do want to do, and I do, and it comes back to the enjoyment aspect of it, right? Do what's fun. Do what's fun, because if you're not having fun, you're not going to spend the time working on it. So finding that thing that you want to, that avenue you want to go down is huge.
That's a super great point that I think a lot of people probably need to hear, right? Because I think a lot of people think they need to know it all. They need to learn it all.
Yeah,
and I mean,
we don't have enough time.
No.
like in our lifetimes, there's not enough time.
Yeah, and it's cool. It's neat. Like if you can pull some jazz elements into your playing, cool. But you don't have to go all the way down that road.
Yeah,
right. You can take just like a shade of your red or whatever that equates to.
Exactly.
Okay, let's actually chat about your ebook, Honesty in Practice. So, tell me how it came about.
Well, this thing happened called COVID. And,
I was there too.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay. And it started basically, I was spending a lot of time during COVID. I think I didn't really start this until the end of 2020.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in 2020 scrolling through Instagram and being like, whoa, there are some amazing guitar players in the world. And they like the thing that seemed to me is like it just appeared that they could just pick up the guitar and do these amazing, flawless things that I was just blown away. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to quit because I can't do that. And there's no, like, there are some savants out there. Like, I just can't handle that. And I think I watched a couple of videos near the end of 2020 about, I think Leon Todd did one, and maybe a few other people, about like, kind of like the fake guitar playing that sometimes happens. Like, the playing along to Guitar Pro tracks, faking that, or even like doing the half speed play along and half speed video, and it looks like all that kind of stuff. And it made me kind of like, okay, like it's not all real. It's, there is a man behind the curtain pulling the strings.
Yeah, totally.
But also it was one of those things, like I just wanted to show people that, like, here I am. I'm not the best guitar player in the world, but I'm a working musician. Yep. And I still have stuff I have to work on. And I still have ideas that I'm processing that seem really basic, but they impact how I'm performing on stage every night and how I'm teaching and how I'm working on sessions. Yeah. And so I wanted to start just demonstrating things. And I'm not saying I didn't do a few takes sometimes.
Of course. Yeah.
But a lot of it was just like, oh, here's an idea. I'm going to work on this for a bit to like make sure I understand this idea. And then I want to share it. I want to be like, here's something cool that you can work on that might be a little bit different. So like sometimes it would be, a pentatonic shred thing. Sometimes it would be a country lick. Sometimes it would just be a warm-up exercise. Sometimes it would be like a funky picking sort of or a funky strumming sort of thing. But I wanted to post that so people could see like, oh, here's this guy, he plays for Thomas Rhett. And I've talked to lots of people and they're like, oh, you play for Thomas Rhett? I'm like, I'm just a dude who plays guitar, I'm just a dude. Who has a really awesome job. So posting stuff to Instagram, I wanted to hopefully counterbalance some of that perfect playing. The guys that, for that 15-second clip took 690 takes sort of thing. Yep. And I just want to be like, here, I'm going to leave in the mistakes. I'm going to leave in the bum notes. I'm going to make, my time sucks right now. It's not locking. It's not pocketing. Still going up. Yep. So that was one aspect of it. Just wanted to share the humanity behind practicing and guitar playing. And I wanted to be honest with people about what I was doing. And I wanted to be honest with myself. I wanted to have a record of like where I was at on that day. I can look back in my Instagram feed now and be like, what was I doing that day? Oh, I was playing this thing. And like, oh, it sounded actually pretty good. Or I can go back and like, oh, that wasn't so good. I got to get better. And it was also like those days, there's a few exercises that are just like honestly simple warm-up exercises, because sometimes you feel like after watching Instagram and YouTube, well, you're just going to pick up your guitar and shred at 240 beats per minute. No, you have to like warm up. We're miniature athletes with our hands, and our fingers. So
Absolutely.
like we have to warm up. And that's, I posted some of that stuff just to be like, yeah, it's not just perfect right out of the box sort of thing.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know Brent Forte? Brent's hanging out in the chat here. He plays bass for Washboard Union.
Yeah, I don't think we've met in person, but hey.
he wants to know about your Boba Fett poster going on back there.
Oh man, okay, yes. Yes,
he's commented 6 times. So
my wife gave that to me a few years ago for Christmas. I'm actually looking for that's the Empire Strikes Back poster. I'm looking for A New Hope and the Return of the Jedi matching ones. I can't find them anywhere, so if anybody's watching and
totally
wants to hold them ransom, I will pay handsomely.
That's good. Yeah, if anything good can come out of this live stream, maybe you'll get a poster. That's awesome. Okay, so hang on. I want to. So we talked about kind of what it's about. It's huge. How many exercises are in it in total?
46.
46. Nice.
Yeah, 46 exercises.
So these were things that you were just doing for yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Originally, this was just straight up for you.
Yep.
Okay, so after having done it for so long, being able to look back at those videos, how has it changed either your playing or your mentality towards playing?
I think there's 2 things right away that pop to mind. The first thing is that I've really enjoyed being honest. I've really enjoyed presenting like warts and all, what's going on and what's happening, because I feel like I don't have a huge Instagram following, but the people that do follow, they appreciated seeing that, and they've enjoyed seeing. They've been like, it's a little bit voyeuristic, like anything YouTube or Instagram. It's like we enjoy seeing other people go through their day to day and the struggles that they have and the successes they have. So like that's kind of cool. I also have like, it's made me slow down. It's made me like. Sometimes there was a great Robert Greene quote I read today, but it's about being focused. And it's just a bit, if it's kind of like we were talking about jazz and country and rock and all this kind of stuff. If you can't focus on one thing, you're not going to progress. And so when I was doing, sometimes I would post 2 a week, sometimes 3 a week. Sometimes I would post 1 and wouldn't post for 3 weeks. Yeah. And I just wanted to be, because often I was like sitting back and either looking at what I've done and wanted to take the time to work on that one thing specifically, or I was just being a human. I've got a wife, I've got a kid, I've got the job, I've got family. We subject ourselves to this crazy 6-string beast, but sometimes we forget we're human too, and we've got to take out the garbage and say hi to our friends, Yeah. So that's the biggest thing, is I don't mind taking time now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to pull it up. I want to just grab a screenshot here. I think you've got a really, really cool system going on. The way you've set up your table of contents, your hashtags.
Right.
Let me just pull that up here. If I know how to do it. There we go. Oh, wait. Hey.
There we go.
So it goes, you got the introduction, and then the first thing you see is the hashtags.
Yeah.
It looks super great. So now it's not really designed to go through exercise 1 through 46 necessarily, looks like.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Right. And so, going through from exercise 1 to the end, it's not like exercise 1's the easiest, exercise 46 is the hardest.
No, definitely not. You could do that, and that's perfectly acceptable. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah. And it's super neat. You've got it all labeled here, right? So if anyone wants to work on alternate picking, chromaticism, economy, all those things, that's super great to see. Now, and some of them cross-reference each other. Yeah, I can see here, like, Telly Tuesday and hybrid picking, both number 2. Like, yeah, that's super, super great. I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so someone picks up this course and that, they want to go through and learn some exercises. How do you know when you're done with an exercise, or when it's appropriate or it's okay to move on?
That's obviously there's a lot of self-evaluation that comes with that sort of thing, whether it's this or any other course. I feel like I've struggled with this my entire life, to be honest. And the best thing to do is, like, for me, and what I found is pick a tempo, pick a goal, and work towards it. And awesome. pick a goal, and then maybe cut that goal in half, and then work to that. Yep. And then if you get there, then maybe you can move on. But maybe you're like, okay, I've got some momentum now, and I'm going to continue up to work towards a certain tempo. A lot of these exercises do have a tempo associated with them.
Awesome.
That you could work towards. But I think focusing on cleanliness when you're playing these, making sure you're accurate and articulate is essential. If you can play one of the, like, there's a few that have like 16th note triplets at like 100 and some odd beats per minute, which is a pretty good clip, you know. If you could play that at 60 beats per minute with accuracy and cleanliness, and you actually are thinking through the exercise, you've maybe memorized the lick, and you're playing through it and you know exactly where your fingers are going, I think at that point you could say, oh, I can move on here. Or you could say now, or it's like, this is not the end, this is the beginning, you know. We've got a long way
absolutely
to go.
Yeah, and I think that's cool too, right? So maybe you make it there, maybe you're at half the tempo and you've got it super clean. It's okay to put it down for a while, go work on the other things you're working on, and you know, and keep coming back to it periodically. It's not like you have to completely master it once. You get to the point you want to get to, and then you're completely done with it.
Exactly. And I think especially, I don't know if you've experienced this yourself or some of your clients that you've worked with or have experienced this, where it's like sometimes you get to a point of diminishing returns when you're working.
Absolutely.
Like the neurons, because when you're practicing something, or performing any new skill or task, you're wiring new neuron pathways in your brain, right? And at a certain point, I don't know the science behind it, but it feels like maybe they're just getting clogged, or maybe they're just running out of gas and they can't get along that pathway. So you got to step back, do something else, go for a walk, brush your teeth, read a book, watch TV, do whatever, and then come back to it and you'll be fresher. Some of the best practicing and some of the most, and it's funny how this works, some of the best practicing, most advancing I've done when it comes to learning licks especially, is practicing them before I go to bed. Practicing for like 15, 20 minutes, slowly, making sure that's happening, and then going to bed. And then your brain repairs and the neural pathways solidify. And then when you wake up, you'll find I can play this like 25% better or 25% faster than I could last night. And all I did was sleep. And I think that's huge. I think breaking up your practice time or breaking up certain things into chunks throughout the day or throughout the week is a great way to approach practicing anything.
I think so too, and that's a huge takeaway for me, or has been in my life practicing, and something I really stress to some of the students I work with, and in some of the videos I'm making here, where, like you said, you know, like your few minutes before bed. For me, it's like, keep your guitar out at home. And I'm fortunate, my kitchen's literally right there, so I could be like cooking something. I've got like boil water. If I've got something I've been working on that's like marinating, but it's not quite there, I'll come in here even if I have 30 or 45 seconds. And I'll grab a guitar, and even just to like get the muscle memory happening, just to make it a little more automatic so that I'm not second guessing myself. And whenever I have to learn something like that for a gig or for myself, I go through that same process wherein, I don't know about you, but like, so say some of these are a little longer maybe. What's like the longest thing in here?
There's a couple that are like 2 pages where it's just like you're manipulating through different permutations of this scale up, this sort of thing. But like the basic phrase might be only 4 or 8 bars sort of thing.
I had an experience with, it happens all the time, with a student the other day where they wanted to learn a solo or a part of a solo, and you know, I watched them trying to play through what they'd been working on, and they'd go from beginning to end, and then from beginning to end, and beginning to end, without, you know, stopping partway through and going, okay, well, this is phrase 1, you know, let's get phrase 1. Let's get phrase 2. Let's get phrase 1 and 2 together. Is that a way you might approach something like that too? How do you think about or see a piece? Do you like to start beginning to end? Do you like to work on it in little pieces?
Chunking is huge. Breaking things up into little pieces, like that is 100% science. Like breaking things up into smaller pieces and then connecting them allows you to learn and facilitates faster learning as well. The first time I ever experienced that was when I was a kid taking piano lessons. I only took piano lessons for a couple of years before I discovered guitar, and I wish I kept it up. But I remember my piano teacher at the time. She said, rather than trying to learn the whole piece from front to beginning to end, learn the last bar of the song first. And in most piano songs, and especially those beginner books, the last bar is just a chord, a whole chord. So you'll play that, and guess what? You just got a little win, you know?
Totally,
Like it's building. And so then you go back to the beginning of the song and you learn the first bar.
Yep.
And then you go to the end of the song and you learn the second last bar, and you just sort of work back and forth.
Cool.
So you're chunking that way. But like when it comes to guitar stuff I'm doing right now, when it comes to learning solos, I break things down to licks. And I really like doing that because sometimes you can learn a solo and not understand the harmony that you're playing over, the chords that you're playing over. You're like, okay, I got this great solo, but like, how does this work? How is this harmonically and theoretically working? So breaking it down to licks, that's allowed me to learn, especially country guitar. It makes so much sense to do it that way, because not only you can be like, okay, every time I'm playing over an A chord, I've got this A lick I can play. You can use that anywhere, sort of thing. But so breaking stuff down like that for learning solos, and then for work right now, like I chart this tunes, and then I will learn the intro, and I will only work on the intro.
Totally.
And then I will learn the chorus, and I will only work on the chorus. And then I might actually skip to the second chorus and confirm that it's the same as the first chorus. And if it's slightly different, I'll make sure I put those, like, it's all about breaking things down and chunking. There's no way you can learn a song by let me rephrase that. You can totally learn a song by playing it from beginning to end. You'd have to do it 50 or 60 times. You can be way more efficient with your learning and your memorization by breaking it down to chunks and then putting it all together. So yeah, totally.
Speaking of breaking it down, okay, so you mentioned, like, you find this lick you can play over an A chord, say. I know there's a few different theories for how people like to view the guitar fretboard, right? I think that's a hot topic. It's all over YouTube, right? 3 notes per string versus caged versus, specific triads, and it's all the same thing. Right? It's just how you categorize the information, the notes, and how you see it, and how you can, learn a lick and then replicate it. How do you look at the fretboard?
A little bit from column A, B, C, D, and E. For sure. I took a few lessons from Tony Zorzi, who's a great jazz guitar player here in Toronto. And when I took lessons from him, he was all about viewing things in relation to chord shape. So not specifically caged, but like if you're playing at a bar chord, major bar chord, of the 5th fret, you're thinking about A. And so you're trying to, like, if you're soloing, you're trying to hit those chord tones, or if you're playing a C, that sort of thing. I also like do the 3 note per string stuff all the time. Like that's how I feel like, for me personally, being able to move across the fretboard makes a lot of sense. Being able to connect things using 3 note per strings. And also facilitates consistent picking motion as well. But also, I'm a huge fan of just like basic triads. And so, especially with country stuff, and if I would say a more traditional type of country song, if I'm like really spent on like ideas, say I don't have an idea or I don't have that lick for the A chord, I will just try to think of the triads and play the arpeggiated triad in a musical way, and maybe have an approach tone from one side or the other, doing that sort of stuff, because that's great. So there's like, it's like you said, it's just different way to categorize and view it, but that's the way I sort of look at it right now. I'm the same. I like caged is probably where I feel rooted the strongest. And 3 notes per string is something that's kind of new to me. I've been playing around with a little bit because I never played much fast heavy music, so it was not part of that world. It's really neat. And you'd mentioned kind of like being able to fluidly work your way up the neck. I think that's where that system really excels compared to caged or your pentatonic boxes, which is all the same thing, because you're seeing them in chunk, as opposed to, and when you move from one to the next to the next to the next, sometimes maybe it doesn't always sound as musical as you want it to. Yeah, and they're like I feel like every system has its advantages and its disadvantages. I feel like pentatonic 2 note per strings, like you get stuck in those positions really easily, and I have to be very aware. Like I fall back to the standard A minor 5th fret blues box. 99% of the time. We all do. Even with all the other stuff I know. It's like, all right, blues, here we go. And it's, I think, in my experience, a lot of the great solos out there do. And it's like you can be so musical in those 5 notes. Completely. It's mind-blowing. Something I've I don't know why I didn't recognize this before, but if you actually learn the melodies to, I would say, especially country songs, but pop songs, and I'm not talking about like your Christina Aguilera's or whatever, right. Your that sort of stuff, but most melodies are just pentatonic scales.
Yeah, and if
Like,
they're not, they're major scales.
very close, you know, like, and it's like, there it is.
Yeah.
Almost it's amazing that when you start doing that and you're like, I don't really need all these extra notes, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
simplify, let's edit, let's be simple.
I think that's so cool, and I get a lot of people coming in here and they go, I gotta learn my modes like now. I need to know all my positions. I need to know. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put something on the key of C. I want you to play something that sounds like music in, you know, out of that A minor or C major, the first pentatonic scale you ever learn. That's it. Play something musical there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they don't really do it, and you go like, okay, so forget all that other stuff. Like you can do 99% of what you want to do with this.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying don't learn the other stuff. I'm certainly, you know, do eventually if you want to, but there's so many steps first.
For sure.
So important.
And sometimes I feel like it's the when I was growing up, it was like the Guitar World and Guitar Player magazine.
Yep.
That was the source of my guitar information. And now it's YouTube to a certain extent, but just like knowing your modes.
I know.
I know my modes.
Yep.
I can tell you what they are. I could play them, but you know what? No one cares. No, it's about playing something musical. It's about being able to, a great way of theory and like modes, talking about modes is just talking about theory. And a great way about talking, I was told about theory was, theory is just writing down music for people that don't hear it yet.
Sure, that's such a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, so like if you want to communicate, there are some people who like there's one guy in TR's band who has the biggest ears I have ever come across. Like that guy he sings like a bird, he can harmonize anything. He can play the most amazing stuff on guitar, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know this is what it sounds like.
Yep.
Whereas I'm like, well, let's analyze this, and you know, it's like, because my ears are not as good as his.
Yeah.
So like that's the great, and only reason I learned and understood music was because of theory, being able to read about it, write it down, and understand conceptually and mathematically how it works. And it I'm still working on trying to get better at hearing things.
Yeah.
So it's huge. Yeah.
I'm the same way, and I'm always blown away at the guys like who you're talking about. They've obviously found some way to categorize that information. But they just, you know, they don't have the means to communicate it, and I mean, they don't need to.
No.
They do it so well.
The whole purpose of music is not to play the fastest Phrygian dominant scale in the world. The whole purpose of music is to communicate an emotion, is to create art, and is to entertain people.
Yes.
Entertain. Like we are here to like, we're not called performers for no reason. We're performing. We're trying to engage an audience and do something fun to make them escape their day-to-day life for a few minutes or an hour or something, you know? That's what it's all about.
The guitar solo is, you know, 5% of the song, maybe.
If
and that's,
there's
you know, that's a good point, right? It's all that other stuff that I've been so guilty at overlooking, that like the basic groove, the things that are way more important than being able to shred a guitar solo.
Oh my goodness! And I am the worst for this when it comes to like knowing the lyrics of a song. That's huge, because 99% of the people that are listening to the music are listening to the lyrics. They're not listening to the tone of the bass drum or the guitar, or they're listening to the lyric.
Do you hear lyrics easily, or is that something that you have to actually actively like?
I have to actively listen to lyrics, because if not, I'm listening to everything else. You know, I can hear the melody. I'm like, okay, the melody. I hear the melody. But to hear the actual words sometimes, it's not my strongest suit. And that's why I don't think I'm as good a background singer as I should be, because I need to work on focusing on the lyric and the melody before anything else.
Yeah, that's tough as a guitar player or someone who's super interested in all of the other elements of putting a song together. I remember, you know, I used to be back and forth to Toronto all the time, and so I had lots of time to listen to music. And I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen to the words to this whole song, and like inevitably 15 seconds in, I'm like, crap, back to the beginning. Because like the bass hook grabbed me or something, and like almost never could I make it through. I almost have to like sit down and put them in front of me on a piece of paper. Yeah. And like actually read, otherwise like gone.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for finding like good songs and good songwriters. Like,
Sure.
because there's a lot of stuff that we live in a world where people are creating music and writing lyrics because they are expressing a feeling or a moment. But sometimes it's that, like, it doesn't catch you as a listener, and you have to
Yeah.
find the things that do catch you and listen to those lyrics. And it's like finding that thing, that genre of music that you're really passionate about. You have to find those songs that you're really passionate, and then you can get to the other ones that you're maybe not quite as passionate about, but you'll have the skills and the abilities to listen to those lyrics and
Yeah.
that melody and be able to focus on that a little better.
Yeah. That's I love Tom Bukovec's YouTube channel. That's like my favorite thing that came out of COVID, I think.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And that's his biggest thing, right? He'll tell you when he's in the studio, the lyric, the vocal is like blasted. It's just even if it's not a great singer, he's got that vocal blasted because your whole job is to support that, is to support the lyric and to support the story. I think in almost any genre, unless you're playing instrumental music, but even then, at that point, you're supporting whatever the melody is.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether it's you or not.
Yep. I grew up listening to like Joe Satriani. Like, that was my thing, like instrumental rock. And then, as cheesy as it is, I love like Yanni.
Yep, cool.
I love, like, Live at the Acropolis was my jam when I was a little kid.
Cool.
And also like smooth jazz. I love smooth jazz.
Cool.
And it's in the instrumental stuff that really, really grabs me. And I can sometimes I think maybe it's just because I actually connect. I don't connect with words quite as much as I do with just the emotional content of a melody. And so that's there's something to be said for that. But supporting the melody, supporting the lyric. And actually I had the opportunity to do a course for jam play that's just come out on their members site.
Cool.
And it's all about modern country rhythm guitar. And one of the things I talked about throughout that entire course was we are here to support the lyric and the melody. That is our job. It doesn't matter. Like, you can play the coolest finger picking thing ever, but if it gets in the way of the melody, guess what's not making to the mix?
Yeah, 100%, right?
That sort of stuff. So
that's cool. How can people get that? So you have to be a member of Jam Play?
As of right now, I believe you have to be a Jam Play member. Cool. I think it'll be available for individuals purchase down the road, and I'll be sure to send you some links to that, or
definitely
on Instagram and stuff. We'll let people know when that's available.
Okay, so back to the honesty and practice.
Yeah.
I want to talk about gear too, but I want to talk about this more really quick. At least one more thing. Talk about the kinds of licks or genres people can expect to find in there. I guess they can go on your Instagram page and they can go back and see you playing them.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
I would say you'll find 60 to 70% is like pentatonic rock type stuff that can be applied in rock or metal or country to a certain extent.
Sure.
We say 25% of the stuff is country licks.
Yep.
And that sort of stuff. And then maybe 4% is the other sort of in between stuff, the funk rhythm playing, the chromaticism type licks in there. And then 1% would be like warm up exercises or conceptual type exercises just to get your hands going.
Nice. So something for everybody. There's all kinds of stuff.
I think so. Yeah.
See, this would benefit pretty much any guitar player out there.
I hope so. I hope, either as a springboard to find something you want to work on, or just something that will give you something new to like get you out of your comfort zone and
awesome.
Work on. Yeah.
Yeah. So there'll be a link in the description of this, and we'll put a link to your. Is Instagram the best place to find you right now?
For sure, yeah. Instagram.
Yeah, that's where you're most active.
Links to everything there, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, so we'll definitely put that there as well. So anyone who's looking to do it, and your website's up there as well.
Yes, yeah.
And that's where they purchase it through, is your website, correct?
It's there's a link to the Gumroad account
awesome.
Through my website or my Instagram account. And just so if anybody wants to purchase it, it's if you use the promo code HIP, HIP, you get 25% off. So
awesome.
It's $20 US to start, and if you use that, you get it for 15.
That's awesome. That's a steal for 46 exercises. This could last you over a year.
It lasted me over a year.
There you go. That's awesome. Okay, before we go, I do want to talk about gear for a second.
Yes.
It's funny. So my whole philosophy with gear is like only have what you need.
Yeah.
There's so many guys out there that are collectors, and that's totally cool. There's so much cool gear out there. And at one point in my life, I aspired to have all the guitars and all the vintage amps and things. And I got to a point where I realized, like, that wasn't serving me because it was hard to maintain them. You can only play one at a time. And like, you know, my least favorite thing is like grabbing a guitar off the wall and the strings are dead, or it needs set up, or like you're working, you're recording, you're whatever, and like inspiration's going, you want to put an idea down, and you grab your like favorite, never mind, not that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I've kind of found less is more for me, and my rule right now is like whatever fits in this room is cool.
Cool.
I've got however many spaces on the wall for the guitars, and that's it. I have room for a few heads, and other than that, like, you know, I don't have a bunch of stuff stored in the basement. I have one 112 cabinet and guitar cases.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your day-to-day rig. I know you're using the Line 6. You're in the Line 6 world.
I am in the Line 6 world, yeah. I've got, on the road right now, I'm using the Line 6 Helix, the rack unit.
Yep.
And what's great about that is that I have a floor unit at home here, and I can program all my tones here. And I literally just throw them in my Dropbox, and when I get down to rehearsal, I pull them down to Dropbox and throw them onto my rig there. I also use have an HX Stomp that I have on a little pedal train junior with some external pedals as well. I love that setup. That's really fun. It's kind of my grab and go. I have done a few random gigs over the last couple of years, and that I'll grab that, and that's the thing that I use for that. But a day-to-day rig, it changes pretty consistently. When I first started playing, like at I would say semi-professional level, I had a Squier Telly, a Fender Strat, and a PRS SE. I had 3 guitars and an acoustic.
Yep.
I have more guitars now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's okay.
Yeah, but I definitely like. I'm looking. I've got some of those industrial kitchen shelves lining either side of my desk here. So I've got a bunch of guitars, and I love them all for different reasons. But I literally touch 3 consistently right now. Let me just grab them.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me see here. I've got. All right, here we go. Right now, these are my day-to-day go guitars.
Yep.
Got this Yamaha. It's a Yamaha Pacifico 102S. I found it on Kijiji in the middle of the pandemic. These were available in the early to mid 90s.
Yep.
And then I remember seeing one that was it had like a really like an orange finish on it. I was like, that's a cool guitar, but wasn't my thing. But I found this one in the middle of the pandemic, and it was like I couldn't say no. So
cool.
It was a great little score there. And then I'm using this Yamaha Revstar.
Yep.
It was I think this was my second Revstar I ever have. I got a deal with Yamaha. They're really, really good people. The people at Yamaha Canada, Steve and Scott down at Yamaha in California. They've treated me so good on the TR gig. So I'm using a lot of Revstars and Pacificas on the gig.
Nice.
And then I've got this little, I called it, this is like my fusion shred machine. I love this guitar. It's like all my guitars are loaded with MJS custom pickups. They're a local company out of Mississauga, Ontario. Smitty and Sue there, they're like family to me and my family.
Nice.
If I'm not over there just talking about pickups and trying to learn more about pickups. I'm the worst when it comes to gear. Like
Same.
I don't understand everything really. I know like you hit this and magnetic fields and it goes out. And they've talked to me about it. I'm like, it's like sometimes
this one sounds good.
Yeah,
Nice.
And sometimes when they talk to me, I feel like I'm Charlie Brown in the class. You know, the teacher. Sometimes and they're like,
totally.
And I'm like, I know what you're saying, and I'm trying to retain this, but they're amazing pickups.
Cool. I didn't realize they were local to Ontario.
Yeah, down in Mississauga. Like,
nice.
I've gone swimming at their house.
Amazing.
So it's awesome.
Love it.
So yeah, those are my 3 day-to-days right now. But I did get into a bit of a small collector's sort of period during the pandemic where I was into some of the lawsuit era Yamahas. They're like Les Paul guitars, but they basically have the Yamaha headstock on there. And I have 3 of those now, 1 at home and then 2 on the road. Actually, because they just like sometimes when you're playing a gig, people listen with their eyes. And if
absolutely.
You know, if they don't see the guitar they're expecting, if it looks a little different, they're like,
Yep.
I don't know. It doesn't sound exact. Like you could have it could be the exact same wood,
Yep.
body wood, exact same neck wood, fingerboard wood, exact same pickups. But if
Yep.
the body shape is a little different, they're like, well, it doesn't sound like a Les Paul to me, or it doesn't sound like humbuckers or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I've got a couple of those on the road, but
Yeah, those are cool guitars. I have not ever owned an older Yamaha, but I had a Greco Les Paul lawsuit guitar for a while.
I'm 99% sure that they're the same factory.
I wouldn't doubt it. I think a lot of that stuff was happening.
Yeah, Greco Bernie, I believe.
Yeah.
Yamaha, maybe even maybe Ibanez at the time.
That's
few
right.
styles that came out. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I got into that a bit, but so on the road I'm using the Helix. At home I'm using the Helix.
Yep.
I have a Kemper as well, which is great, but I haven't used that quite a lot, sort of sitting in a road case. And honestly, I have an AC-15 that I bought back in 2017 when I did have a couple of random gigs, but because I live in an apartment with neighbors above and below me, and I have a 2-year-old daughter that has naps and stuff like that, I don't think I've turned on my amplifier since 2018.
It's crazy, eh?
Yeah, that's nuts.
Awesome.
It's nuts.
I had the same experience. So I'm also affiliated with Yamaha, and prior to that relationship starting, I did purchase my HX Stomp like a normal human, and like totally fell in love with it. I bought it because I thought like I need a multi effects pedal. I'm tired of buying and selling chorus pedals or flanges or like things where like I'll get a gig and be like, well, guess I got to go get that now.
Yeah.
So I was looking at I think the Eventide H9, and then that came onto my radar, and I didn't know anything about it, and like my only prior experience with Line 6 at that time was the old Spider amps when I was working at a music shop in mid 2000s. So like I had a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Like, wow, why would I want that?
You want to hear a crazy story?
I do.
Back in, I think I was 14 or 15. I needed to buy an amp. I think I had a PV Bandit 110, which is an awesome amp. This wasn't even the trans tube ones. They were the old green and black ones.
Cool. Yep.
Still a great amp.
Yep.
But I needed something bigger, and so I went to the local music store, and they had the Line 6 Spider, and they had a blackface Bassman, and they were the exact same price. This was like 93 or 94. Okay. And I walked out of that store with the Line 6 Spider.
How old was this Bassman?
It was blackface, so it would be 465.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
And I was like, but it just has a clean sound.
Yeah,
and it doesn't go with a flanger. So like, yeah, that's one of those things. I'm looking back, almost 25 years later or whatever. I'm just like, oh, if we had known, like, oh man.
Yeah, I have a few of those stories that I'm kicking myself now.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Anyways, I got on the HX Stomp, and it was a game changer. I never thought I'd use the amp modeling. So at that point, I'd never played a Kemper. At that point, I was like, it has to be an amp or nothing. That was my mentality. And I used a GarageBand. I plugged direct into my interface and used GarageBand for practicing. And that was good enough. That like got the job done. And I thought like, oh, okay, if like my amp goes down in the gig, I guess I could turn an amp on this thing. And then I started practicing with it at home, and I just went like, oh my god. This changes everything. It made practice at home so much fun. Like it sounded so good. I wanted to play so much more. The amount of time I spent practicing after getting that, like it jumped. I was double or triple what I would normally play in a day.
Yeah,
just because it was so much fun, and I think that's so cool. Having all those sounds at your fingertips is huge.
It's inspiring. It's like, oh, I want to play a country. I want to work on this country thing, so you can dial in a country sound. Yeah. Oh, I want to learn a jazz line. Well, you can dial in all that is right there, and it's really, really awesome. That's why I love the Line 6 stuff and the modeling aspect. Whether you're using Line 6 or any other company, it's just like it can be really inspiring, and it's right there. We have the technology, it's just like we're talking over the internet right now.
That's right.
What is this? It's the same thing. Like you have any sound that is possible in the world in this little box.
Yeah. It always boggles my mind. You get the guys, well, it doesn't really sound like a real amp. Like, no, but it sounds like a real amp on a record.
Yes, it does. That is That's so true. It's
And
so
that's
true.
I think that's a tough thing for some people to wrap their heads around. Have you had any experiences with modeling where you felt like you wished you had an amp?
Initially, when I didn't understand the technology,
Absolutely,
for
that's a
sure,
huge point. Yeah,
for sure. We had a little test call earlier, and we were just talking briefly about how I've discovered that the Line 6 stuff and most modelers are so accurate, that they give you enough rope to hang yourself. You know,
yeah,
you have the ability to make the worst sound possible. So you actually have to know. You can't just say, "Well, I like an AC30, so I'm going to
yep,
put in the AC30, and it should sound like an AC." Well, like you don't know how the AC30 works, and that's
right.
how you have to understand this technology. You have to go in and be able to like understand like where does the bias sit, where does the sag sit. Not extensively. You can use your
Hmm.
ears to find this stuff out,
Yep.
but you have to use your ears and use don't use your eyes so much and be like, well, the bass is on 10. Why does it not sound like there's any bass or all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
On being able to understand the technology and how it works. Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. So back earlier, I was like, man, I kind of wish I had an amp for sure, for
Yep.
sure. But now that I understand
Yeah.
how everything works and just how things work in regards to like sometimes you're like, this doesn't sound good. And you're like, well, it's because you're listening to a completely dry mono signal that's hitting your brain right here.
Yep.
And we were talking about like initially a couple years ago, I started just putting like a room reverb after the
Yeah.
cab or IR just to
Yep.
add some space. And that was huge. And now I split everything into it has to be stereo IRs or stereo stock cabs, whatever you use, and then stereo effects after that because it gives you the space. It gives you like, oh, it's moving around me. There's some air sort of stuff happening. And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge thing because a lot of people just like put in an amp and cab and like, oh, it sounds so brittle and dry, and there's all this weird top end fizz and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even that, like frequencies, like guitar cabs in the real world, they cut off frequencies, or at least there's a huge high cut slope, probably starting around between 8 and 10, and it's
Yeah.
gone. Like cabs are not putting out frequencies above 12 or 14K.
And that's so when you talk about being able to hang yourself with these units, that's such a great point because you can introduce all those frequencies into your sound that you physically can't get through a real guitar cab.
Completely.
And if you don't understand what's happening, then you maybe you pick up this modeler, whatever it happens to be, and go like, this sounds like trash. Amps are better than modelers.
Yep.
And it's like you just got to know those little things.
Exactly. I really like encourage anybody who's into any sort of modeling is like take your time with it. Like
Yep.
don't grab it and expect to take it on a gig tomorrow unless you've got great ears
Yeah.
and you know what you're doing right away for sure. But like if this is your first experience, spend time. There's so many great YouTubers out there
Yeah.
providing tons of information. There's lots of great forums you can go on
Yeah.
and learn so much stuff. There's a couple of online guitar communities that I've been part of for 20 years almost now, and I'm still learning stuff every single day about guitars and amps and pedals and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Like there's just so much stuff you can learn
Yeah.
when it comes to this sort of gear.
Awesome. Cool, man. I think that we covered everything.
Great. Awesome.
That was awesome. Super appreciate you being here. And again, so if anyone's tuning in and missed it earlier, Nathan's ebook, Honesty in Practice, is available now. There's a link in the description down below, and we'll make sure to link to all his social media, website, all that stuff. And if you're wanting to follow him, check out what he's up to, Instagram sounds like the place to do it.
For sure. Well, thanks for having me, Eric.
Cool.
I really appreciate you having
Yeah,
me here, and
that's
I
awesome.
really love your channel, and
Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it.
all the best with it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right,
Well,
man.
okay, we'll catch you guys later.